of Boston, this is the Boys of Beantown, your source for weekly Bruins news, analysis, and updates. Welcome into week number 4 of the Boys of Beantown. As always, Joshua Powers. With me is Austin Bumpus. We have a lot on schedule for today. We're going to talk about Florida, Krejci and Marchand, the road in general, Dallas, among many other things, and the Kelly injury. We're going to start off with Florida, road trip, I should say. 3-1 against the Panthers, 3-1 against Lightning, both wins to the Bruins. I sort of predicted it in my bold prediction. I'm kind of happy about that. Didn't think it would happen.
Proud of you.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm proud of myself. Looking at Florida to start off, the Bruins were outshot 32-30, but still came away with the win. Austin, what stands out for you about that game?
I think it was a big game, big first game of that Florida road trip. I think we really spiked with momentum, especially with that second period. We got those 2 goals, Marchand and Chara. I think they were both huge as far as starting off this trip with momentum and getting that confidence on offense that we really needed to perform well.
Well, what really stands out for me is the second period against the Panthers. Panthers, I should say, had 1 goal on 7 shots. We had 2 goals on 9 shots, which for both goaltenders was really the only blemish besides the first period for Luongo, where we had 1 goal on 7 shots. But Tuukka performed really well. He stopped 31 shots, which is classic Tuukka fashion, and I'm glad that we were able to still see that against the number 2 team in the NHL, believe it or not, folks.
And I think it's good to see that happening against a really solid goalie in Roberto Luongo. It's really good to see Tuukka performing at that high level against these high-level goaltenders and kind of matching up. He only let up that 1 goal, and that's really what we need on this defensive side against talented teams like this.
And the Bruins were a +5 for the night. Louis Eriksson led with 19:55 in ice time for the forwards, and Zdeno Chara, as always, led the defensemen with 26 minutes of ice time. Brad Marchand was given a 5-minute boarding major and a 10-minute game misconduct in the third period. It looks like an interesting hit to me. I don't think it really warranted a 5-minute, boarding major. He was really just going for a hit, and the guy went into the bench. I mean, what can you do about it, But he wasn't suspended for the play. But do you think that it was a justified 10-minute game misconduct?
Oh, I think it definitely was. I think you're right that it just didn't justify a suspension. You kind of look at the same thing with Ronaldo where, yeah, it may look like a nasty hit, but you got to look at the situation and realize that it wasn't as severe as people thought.
Well, looking at the next night now at Tampa Bay, we beat them 3-1. We outshot Tampa Bay 34-22, which is a staggering number against a team that beat us 6-3 in the opening week. The Bruins' penalty kill was quite impressive, actually. They were 4 penalty kills on 5 attempts, which you really need to beat a team like Tampa Bay, being that well and that structured.
I know. I think we played really well defensively that game. We really kind of contained Steven Stamkos, their offensive talent. They got guys like Palat and Kucherov. They're very good offensively, and I think it shows a lot about this defense. It showed a lot about Chara stepping up and playing well and just kind of containing this high-paced offense and us performing well offensively against this talented team.
Well, unfortunately, against the Tampa Bay game, David Krejci lost his point streak. He did not have a goal or an assist, and that's where my bold prediction was wrong, unfortunately. But, hey, what can you do?
Not proud of you.
I'm sorry. But, Louis Eriksson, once again, 22 minutes on the ice. Zdeno Chara, 24 minutes. Those 2 guys are taking total control of this team. They're leading everybody in the ice time. They're being that presence on the ice, that veteran presence on the ice for these young guys.
And Eriksson's numbers may not show it as far as goals or assists or anything like that, but like you said, it's that leadership aspect that he's always on the ice. He's always making these chances and creating these nice passes and stuff like that. Same thing with Chara, where his numbers are starting to pick up, but he's not always there with assists or goals or anything like that. But he's just there. He's making these chances. He's taking advantage of everything and just really performing well for this team.
And the Bruins were a +10 against Tampa Bay. But coming out of these first couple of weeks here, Marchand and Krejci were given honors by the National Hockey League. Marchand was named the first star of the week for the NHL. Krejci was named the third star of the month. Now, looking at Marchand's last week, he's had 4 goals, he's had 3 assists, and he has had 7 points. He's at +5, actually, when it comes out. +4, excuse me. But Marchand's making a difference in this team. And just looking at his numbers, it's clear, and he deserves it.
And his speed, I think, is the best thing about Marchand, where you see him on all these shorthanded breakaways where he's just creating these chances, and no matter what, he's willing to take the chance, he's willing to take the risk, and a lot of the times the risk will pay off, and that's what this team needs, is that aggressive playing style. And it's a good mix, like we've said in past weeks, of kind of aggressive but also held back enough to kind of play well defensively like we saw in that Tampa game. And I think Marchand's a good balance of that.
Absolutely, and he's averaging at least 18 or 19 minutes of ice time. The only game he didn't have it was against Florida, and that's because he was given the game misconduct in the third period. Great shooting percentages. Looking at Krejci, though, third star of the month, this is probably one of the easiest awards to ever give out to him. I mean, just looking at the month of October that this guy had and the point streak he had going, I mean, how could he not get this award?
I know, he's a very talented guy. It's crazy to think that people are talking about getting rid of him and Marchand as well. I don't know what you can say about Krejci other than the fact that he's just awesome all around. He creates all these chances for the Bruins, and he's just always there offensively. He's always on point and just knows what to do and the right time to do it.
And Krejci had 7 goals, 8 assists, and he was a +7 for the month of October, which is staggering numbers in the National Hockey League. You look at his stats, he only has 1 game where he's below 19 minutes of ice time. That was against Colorado in the opening week. But he's averaging 19 to 20 minutes of ice time, at least 20 shifts a game. Right now, he is part of that major veteran presence that's making the Bruins play so well.
I think we have a good mix of that youth and that veteran presence that you're talking about. Krejci's definitely, he's up there, not up there in age, but he's had that experience. He knows what he's doing. He's kind of figuring out the Bruins style of play, and he's a very good center to have with a lot of young guys on the team. He just creates all these chances. He's great passing, but he also has that nice shot that can take advantage of these opportunities.
Absolutely, and looking at Krejci and Marchand, the way they're playing, it's also helped the Bruins become 5-0 on the road. This is the first time the Bruins are 5-0 on the road since 2010 and 2011 season. We all know what happened during that year. It's probably one of the greatest years in our memory. But looking and comparing the teams that we played this year, comparing to the teams we played in 2011, our 5 road games to start the year were Colorado, who's now 4-7, Arizona, who's now 5-5, the New York Islanders, who are 7-3, Florida, who's 5-4, Tampa, who's 6-6, and our record after the first 5 road games is 6-3-1. But if you look at Arizona back in 2011, they were our first road game. They were 1-0 at the time. We moved on to New Jersey. It was 1-4. Washington was 4-2. Ottawa was 4-6. Buffalo was 3-8. The competition was not as stiff, in my opinion, when we were playing in 2011. And we were 7-2 after the first 5 road games, by the way, in 2010, 2011. But the team difference of who we're playing this year.
Yeah, I think it's a very good thing to look at. I'm not huge on looking back on past numbers or anything like that to kind of like see the future or anything like that. It's obviously always a different year. It's a very different team this year than that 2010, 2011 team. But it's definitely a good thing to see that good things can come from these hot starts. And if we're playing strong teams like this and we're playing well against these strong teams and that type of result can happen, then who knows what could happen with this year.
Well, we may be 5-0 on the road, but unfortunately the Bruins cannot find a way to win at home. We beat Arizona last week, thankfully, for our first win. But last night against Dallas just was not our night in any way, losing 5-3 against the Stars, even though we outshot them 39-19, which I don't care what you say makes a very big difference to know that Tuukka had a .737 save percentage, while Lehtinen had a .923 save percentage. I mean, that's a big difference.
And like we were talking about before the show, I think it's tough to say that, we outshot them, so we should beat them. It's not about the quantity of shots, it's about the quality. Dallas took advantage of some great shots. Tyler Seguin was on point with his shooting. And, I mean, it's tough to just say, we had all these shots, we should be scoring more. But Kari Lehtinen played a great game. Tuukka had a rough night. That's all you can really say about it.
Well, I mean, looking at Tyler Seguin, he had 3 goals and 3 shots last night. The hat trick single-handedly put the nail in the coffin for us. And since he was traded to Dallas, unfortunately, when he was 22 years old, he's had 37 goals each year he's been in Dallas. He has 5 already this year, 12 assists already. He's a +3 this year. I mean, he's putting up numbers, and it was such a mistake to trade that guy. I'm sorry, but getting rid of Tyler Seguin when we did was just a horrible idea.
I know. You look at it now, looking back, the talent kind of outweighs the whole situation. We really traded him because of that kind of like clubhouse presence and kind of his personality rather than his talent. Yes, looking back, he's very talented, but even if you look at it, yes, he's very talented, but it may be the system that he's playing with in Dallas. He's got a talented guy next to him like Jamie Benn, and that's just a very offensively talented team. The Bruins have turned into more of a defensive team than an offensive team. They work on both sides. Seguin is mainly offensive, so it's tough to really say that he would be the successful in Boston.
Well, to look at it as well, a couple major points to bring up about last night's loss. The Dallas Stars were 3 for 4 on the penalty kill. They held the power play. The power play is a major part of the Bruins' wins nowadays. We all know it. Everyone knows it. And the power play has to perform well, or you're not going to get those wins. And that's exactly what Dallas did last night. They shut our power play down.
Yeah, and I think it's tough to see for Bruins fans to see that power play finally get shut down. But even then, it's just one game. You can look at it against this past couple weeks where this power play has been on fire. You've looked at past years where the power play has done absolutely nothing, and even some years we've done all right with it. So, I mean, it's just one game. It's tough to think that our power play is just dead. So I think we'll be all set in the next couple games.
Well, in the first time, too, in over a week and a half, Chara did not lead the defense on ice. That award actually goes to Torrey Krug, who had 26 minutes on the ice, who was a +1. He had 2 assists on the night. But for Chara not to lead the defense for the first time in over a week and in time on the ice, do you think that it makes any kind of difference whatsoever not having Chara be that guy who's there for 26 minutes, but instead having Krug, who's very capable of backing up Chara as well? I'm not going to diss Krug in any way, shape, or form, but what kind of difference do you think that it makes having Krug out there for 26 minutes and then you have Chara who's out there for 22? It's a 4-minute difference.
I think it's a good thing. I think it kind of boosts the confidence of the rest of the defense while kind of giving Chara a break. Obviously, he's up there in age, so it just helps him out, getting him a little bit more rest during games and just not wearing him out as much. That's a big thing with Chara is later on in the season, he's getting very tired, and you could tell that the ice time's just getting to him. So it's good that they're balancing out. They have defensemen that can get out there and perform well like Krug and just make up for that lost veteran presence.
Well, unfortunately, speaking of veteran presence, one of the biggest losses last night besides the score was Chris Kelly, Bruins assistant captain. He's a center. Hit the boards hard in the first period. You watch his leg. It just went a really funky direction. And he has a broken femur. He was taken to Mass General. He's having surgery this morning on that femur to repair it, and his expected recovery is 6 to 8 months. Granted, points-wise, I mean, the guy, he has 2 goals. He has no assists. You know, he's a +3 right now. It's not a huge loss point-wise to the Bruins, but it's a huge loss mentally-wise and seniority-wise. I mean, he's one of those guys who can lead the young guys into games. He knows what he's doing on the ice, and it's a big loss for the Bruins in that way.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that a lot of people say, oh, it's not a big deal because he's not that talented. He's not scoring as much. He's not creating a lot of chances. But like you said, it's definitely that mental presence out there. It helps with these third and fourth liners, having them out there on the penalty kill and stuff like that. It's definitely it'll be a big loss as far as a leadership role where you only have a guy like Krejci and Bergeron, who obviously Bergeron's very good defensively, but if you don't have that other leadership on the lower lines, it might kind of hinder this offense.
I fully agree, and we hopefully he's back soon and everything goes well. They were mentioning last night that is this the end of Chris Kelly? I don't believe it is, depending on how his recovery goes. I mean, obviously, he still has to have the surgery and repair the bone, but if everything's okay and they can get it repaired, I don't see this as being the end.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 34 years old right now. You look at guys like Chara who are up there and still performing well. As far as whether or not the Bruins will bring him back, I guess we'll have to see, but if he stays around, I think it'll be a huge help, and if he can perform the same way he did before the injury, it'll be huge for this offense.
Well, we're out without Chris Kelly now, and we're going on the first major road trip of the year, and I say major because it's the first time we're having back-to-back games. Thursday night, we're in Washington to play the 8-3 Capitals. Saturday night, we're going to Montreal to play the 11-2 Canadiens, and then Sunday afternoon, we're back in New York to play the Islanders, who are 7-3. But last time we played Montreal, it was very, very ugly. It was 4-2 the final. Bruins got outplayed in every single aspect of that game, hands down. And the last time we played the Islanders, we did win 5-3. It was a new team out there. But just going from Canada on a Saturday night, getting into New York, playing the next day, that's a lot of grinding travel for these guys to have.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge test for these Bruins. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago with Arizona when they played us and we had won that game. We talked about the travel aspect of it. This will be a huge test, especially against talented teams like Montreal and the Islanders. I think, personally, it might help us, actually. It'll kind of get us out on the season track where we need to perform well consistently rather than having these breaks. It'll kind of keep up any hot streak that we have going. It also could hurt if we're not performing well, and it's just going to lose our confidence or any confidence and momentum we had, and this power play actually might get affected in the long term.
Well, looking at Montreal, I mean, I'm not so much focused on Washington. That's going to be an interesting game. We haven't played them this year yet, but I'm excited to see what happens when we're in Washington. Obviously, they're a very competent team behind Ovechkin. That's going to be a great game to watch. I can't wait to watch it personally. But looking at Saturday, Carey Price is out with a lower body injury for a week. That is a major, major difference in this game. He's first in the league with wins with 7. He has 2 shutouts to lead the league as well. Not having Carey Price in there, especially when he won 7 straight games, that's huge. With this young Bruins team, it is so big not to have Carey Price in that net for the Canadiens.
Like my bold prediction last week, this could be huge for the Bruins as far as kind of making ground on that Eastern Conference. I think we can really push up. If Montreal drops down, if we can take advantage of that hurt Montreal team without Carey Price, it'll really boost our confidence and really get a hot streak going against these talented teams like Washington, Montreal, and New York. If we can win these games, then I think it'll push us forward right to the top of the Eastern Conference and kind of make a name for ourselves.
I mean, it's time for the Bruins to make a move. We've obviously been playing better hockey. Last night was the first regulation loss in 7 games for the Bruins, which is big. I mean, we never thought that would ever happen after seeing the first 3 games of the year, but it's the first game they've lost. So obviously our team is still in a roll. We want to see that continue this week going into the road trip. I mean, coming back next week for this podcast, this could be a major, major story that we're trying to look into. I mean, if the Bruins can beat the number 1 team in the conference, the Canadiens, then this could be a whole new leaf for the Bruins. But looking forward from the road trip, I should say, Seidenberg is still on his way back to the Bruins. When he comes back, what happens? Do you split the defensive core? Who goes to Providence? Do you do a trade? What's going to happen to this team when Seidenberg comes back?
I mean, I think we got a lot of young guys that can kind of afford to get moved down. I mean, like the solid core that we have, we got Chara, McQuaid, you got Krug, you got both the Millers. I think if you add Seidenberg in there, I think you're all set defensively. Those other guys just kind of flow in and out. I mean, who knows when Seidenberg will be back, but it'll be great to have that kind of defensive veteran presence like we talked about before out on the ice to replace that presence lost by Chris Kelly.
You know, I got to say either Trotman or Cross is going down. Neither one of them. I mean, Trotman 1 game, Cross 3 games. You know, there's just nothing there. I mean, you're going to send down one of the young guys. They're not going to trade Seidenberg to get somebody else, as much as it would be interesting to see what they could get for Seidenberg, and it could be a lot that they could get for Seidenberg as well. You're not going to see them trade him out, you know?
I think personally Seidenberg's it's the same thing as Chara where he's a little too up there. I don't know if you could get a lot for Seidenberg. You might get some draft picks or something like that. I don't know if the return would be well enough for the Bruins to take advantage of it because losing him would be huge for the Bruins, but gaining him from another team, like if another team gained him, it wouldn't really make much of a difference to them. So it's the same thing as Boychuk, where losing him to us was a huge deal. He doesn't perform all that well out in New York, so it's just one of those situations.
So it's one of the young guys going down to Providence, which is okay. I mean, we have a little bit of time before Seidenberg is back to look and see who's going to go down. But, I mean, Don Sweeney definitely has a very interesting time ahead of him trying to figure out who he has to send away from Boston.
I know, and I think it's kind of rough having these talented young players out there. I mean, any loss it's not a huge one, but it kind of hinders any growth that you have with these players playing in the NHL. And we already have this solid core group that, yeah, putting a new guy in there every now and then is a great thing to have. But also with this Bruins team, we've been very unlucky with injuries. Who knows what will happen before Seidenberg gets back? We could lose another guy in that time, and we're very injury prone apparently with defensive players, as you could see last year.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that situation.
Well, the month of November is upon us now, second month of the hockey season. Bruins have a lot of games coming up, only a couple of road games, believe it or not, only 5. But we're going to look into the month of November right now. So obviously we've been talking about the road trip. We're going to Washington, Montreal, and New York, back to Brooklyn, as Jack Edwards would say. Then the Bruins get 3 days off to come home and face Colorado, which I'm expecting a win out of, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and I think that 3 days rest will be a good thing, but also it could hurt as far as if we win those games in Montreal and New York, I think that might actually hurt. Having all that rest, it could slow us down against Colorado.
And then we're going to take a day off on Friday and come back at home against Detroit. Have not played them this year. That is always a tough matchup. I hated when Detroit came over to our conference. But you know what? I mean, you got to do it 3 times a year, so let's get the first one out of the way.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a good thing to have because we've been performing pretty badly at home. So I think having that Detroit game, if we can get some momentum and get that going, it'll help out in the long term with home games.
Well, looking into the third week, we're going to be 3 straight home games, which is really nice. San Jose, who we had not played before. That should be interesting. I mean, San Jose's not really performing to the best of their abilities right now, I should say. They're not, terrible, but that can also be a win if we play solid hockey. Looking forward to the Thursday, you play Minnesota, which I'm always weary about because it's just something about Minnesota. And being out in that separate conference, they just, I don't know, every time we play the Western Conference, it scares me. It's a whole different style of hockey, which is why San Jose and Minnesota back-to-back I'm very intrigued about seeing.
I think it'll help that we're at home, too. Like you said, Western Conference play for us, for some reason, has always been kind of a struggle. Minnesota is a very talented team, so it'll be a very good test for this team.
Well, looking at that weekend, you play Toronto at home. It's the first time playing Toronto all year. I love playing Toronto. It's in our intro for a reason. Coming back from 4 goals. I mean, I love playing the Maple Leafs. You know, everyone always says that the Maple Leafs are getting better. Maple Leafs are getting better. Well, you know what? I still have not seen that yet.
And I think these Toronto games, just like the Montreal games, are a huge emotional test for us. Sometimes, like I said in previous weeks, those emotional games can get the best of us. We kind of come out too strong and kind of fall out towards the end. Tuukka always, for some reason, just gets that mental block and just can't perform well. So I think having back-to-back games against Toronto is going to be a huge help for us if we can get that first one.
Well, as Austin said, Toronto turns into a home-and-home series as we play Saturday night in the Garden. Monday night, we go up to Canada to play them.
Canada.
Oh, yeah. Boy, do I just love hearing that. And I want to beat them twice. I want to beat them at the Garden, and then I just want to beat them again on Monday night and make Toronto fans just feel horrible about themselves.
Yeah, and it'll be a huge test travel-wise, too. So just like you said with that Montreal-New York trip, I think going from Boston to Toronto will be kind of a good thing for us. Good thing to get kind of the jitters out. Give us some rest going from Boston to Toronto, and if we lose that first game for some reason, I think we win that second.
Well, we go right from Toronto to a pre-Thanksgiving matchup against the Detroit Red Wings in Detroit. I don't like that game. I don't like it at all. I'm going to admit it. I don't think we can win. I really don't. Because it's Detroit. It's in Detroit. We never have success when we're, at the Joe Louis Arena. Let's be real here. I mean, we got to play our you-know-what's off to be able to win.
I know, but we've been playing really well on the road, and I think playing in Detroit this year especially might help out. I think, like you say, it's a huge challenge, but I think the Bruins are capable of defeating this team on the road.
Well, the Bruins will get Thanksgiving Day off. They will play at home against the Rangers, a 1 p.m. game on NBC on that Friday afternoon. I always love playing the Rangers. The first time playing them this year. That's a tough game. One, because it's at home, and we can't win at home, as we've learned in the past couple of weeks, and we better turn that around quick because we have 7 home games this month, and that could turn ugly for us. But also, the Rangers are a very good team, so that'll be a very competitive game, a classic New York versus Boston matchup.
Yeah, I really hate those New York Rangers games. Personally, something about the Rangers for the Bruins is just always tough, except for some reason in the playoffs. So hopefully we can get off to a strong start in that game at home and just ride that momentum through the end of the month.
And that's the month of November for the Boston Bruins. So next up, you all know it as Bold Predictions, but now it's Bold Beliefs. It's my personal favorite segment.
It's our only segment.
Okay, but that's why it's my favorite, and still brought to you by Pepper Brooks. So here's our Bold Belief for the month of November.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
So my prediction for the month of November is the Bruins are going to go 9-3. Obviously, we lost to Dallas last night, but we're going to lose to the Rangers at the Garden, and we're going to lose to Detroit at the Joe Louis Arena. But in the middle of the month, we're going to go on a winning streak, and we're going to take over the first place spot in the conference. Austin, what do you got?
My belief is that Don Sweeney's going to go to the Thanksgiving Day parade. He's going to sign Santa to a 1-game contract, and he's going to go off against the Rangers. He's going to score 4 goals, maybe get 2 assists along with it, and have the game of his life, and then go get ready for Christmas.
Well, it looks like Austin's in full Christmas daydream and full Christmas spirit mode.
I can't wait. Gingerbread all through my mind right now. It's all I can think about.
Well, there you have it. I guess we're not talking hockey anymore. We're talking gingerbread. But that's going to do it for the Boys of Beantown. If you have any topics you want discussed, tweet us at Boys of Beantown or email us at boysofbeantown@gmail.com. And as always, you can find us on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes. I'm Joshua Powers.
And I'm Santa.
Tune in next week for more Bruins news and updates.